Hola guys, Deja Perez back with another edition of What's Poppin' the podcast on 93.9 WKYS. And today we have Mitch from Remedies Columbia. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Deja. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So Mitch has a medical cannabis dispensary. That's right?
That's correct.
Okay.
The largest in the state.
The largest in the state.
Yes, ma'am.
So how did you come about that? Because it's in Maryland, and I've heard that it's pretty hard to start one of these.
It is very, very difficult. We won a merit-based application process against, I believe there were 900 applications for 103 dispensaries in the state of Maryland.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we came in second in Howard County, District 13. They gave out 2 in District 13, so we received one of those 2.
Wow.
There are 70 open in the state of Maryland today.
Okay.
There's probably another 32 or 33 to go. Maryland is now the most dense state for dispensaries in the entire country on a square mile basis.
Really?
So there are 70 dispensaries in the smallest space in America, essentially.
Huh.
Yeah, so it's gotten very heated and very hectic. The state did about $97.5 million in medical cannabis sales in year 1.
Wowzers.
Yeah.
So how long have you been open?
We have been open since December 21st.
You just opened?
No, a year ago.
17.
Exactly right.
Okay.
It was our 1-year anniversary, December 21st.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. So what sparked this? Like, what made you get into medical cannabis distribution?
So I've been passionate about cannabis myself since I was 21, 22 years old.
Okay.
I've been self-medicating for cannabis, and it's funny because when you're self-medicating 20 years ago, they call it getting high.
Indeed.
But today,
100%.
you know what I mean? But today, it really is self-medicating. So I've always been passionate about cannabis, never a big drinker, never really, kind of pharmaceutical or narcotics or any of those types of things. Wasn't really a big believer in Western medicine. Always found that cannabis tended to relieve a lot of symptoms that I might happen to have. As the world started to transition into this kind of realization that, maybe it wasn't the devil's lettuce as they have always led us to believe. I kind of, as an entrepreneur, I've always been an entrepreneur. I've always started in businesses. I kind of kept my eye on it. And in 2014, I was living in New Jersey, and my best friend and today my business partner, he was working in Baltimore, running the largest alternative heroin treatment center in Baltimore City. He treats thousands of heroin addicts a year.
Wow.
With acupuncture and Tai Chi.
Get out of here.
Yes.
Effectively.
Effectively. It's pretty amazing.
Okay.
It's pretty amazing, yeah. So Maryland wrote a very, very progressive law in 2014. They basically created one of the most liberal medical cannabis programs in the country.
Okay.
And I was in New Jersey, I called my partner and I said, we're going to apply for a cannabis license. And
okay.
He said, he'll tell you he does it better than me, but he said, it's a gateway drug, and hung up on me. He does it so much better than me. But so we kind of, we started to talk, and he very quickly realized that it wasn't a gateway drug, that actually there are some very powerful statistics. And the one that got him was in medical cannabis states, fatal opioid overdoses are 25 to 30% lower. Which in the state of Maryland, I believe in 2017 there were 700. Which means, with medical cannabis, you're saving 150, 170 lives.
That's a lot of lives.
Literally, exactly right.
Wow.
So once he kind of realized that, he started to look at it in a different way. And, his background is in healthcare. His background is in wellness. His family were the first people in America to teach acupuncture in 1974 in Colombia, Maryland.
Wow.
So,
okay.
His family is kind of wellness and alternative medicine
Basic.
Royalty
Gotcha.
right. So, once he kind of came to the conclusion that maybe what I was saying might have some merit, he went back to his father and they started to dig in a little bit, and they were pretty blown away. So we started to put together a team, and we did a lot of work. The state wrote a great law and made a great law, but it took a long time to implement. Mm-hmm. So we started in 2014, and our application actually went in, I believe, in 2016. I think it took 2 years.
Wow, okay.
And then there was a 6-month waiting process, and we applied for a grow, a processor, and a dispensary.
So does that mean that you grow your own stuff?
So
here?
we were trying to grow our own cannabis in Maryland. Then we were trying to. Are you familiar with the processing? Mm-mm. So you know all the vape pens that you see everybody with. What that is that's cannabis broken down in a chemical basically it's a very high intensity product from the cannabis, so it's cannabis oil. That all occurs in a processor. So there's actually three legs of the business. There's a grow, where you actually grow the cannabis. There's the processor, where you make it into different products. And there's a dispensary where you sell all the different products.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense.
Right, so the application process was for each vertical.
Oh, okay.
So we applied for all three verticals. We didn't win the grow, we didn't win the processor, which was, as you can imagine, very disappointing. We had invested hundreds of thousands of dollars, years of our lives.
Right.
It was pretty emotionally
Draining.
Yes,
I'm
without
sure.
a doubt, without a doubt. Now they didn't announce at that time the stores, the dispensaries.
Oh, okay.
So
You just thought your dreams had been dashed.
exactly right.
Okay.
And a couple months later, we found out that we had won a dispensary in our hometown of Columbia, Maryland.
Which is dope.
It was really exciting. And what's interesting is a lot of people applied for dispensaries all over the state. We looked at it and we said, this is where we're from, this is where we live, this is our community, and we're going to apply one place. And we applied in one region out of 52 in the state, and we won in our region.
That's a blessing.
It is a blessing. And we own a store, within 5 miles of all of our homes, within 5 miles of
Wow,
where all
that's
of our
great.
children go to school. It is our community.
Okay.
And I think, in retrospect, people often ask us, why are you guys so successful? And there's a lot of reasons, but I do think that one of them is that it is our community. You know what I mean? It's a Remedy has become a community, but it's a community in a community where we were already comfortable, we were already familiar, and
Right.
we have a level of respect. It really is. And I don't know if you know about Colombia, but Colombia is a very unique place. Has a very unique history, and it's grown into this incredible place, right?
Yeah.
But it's still, at the end of the day, it's just like you said, it's just home, and it's nice to see people that we grew up with, and it's nice to see people's children that we grew up with and their parents, and we treat about I want to say 1,700 patients a week.
Wow, that's pretty big.
So we and most of them come from the Howard County area.
Okay.
We do have a decent number of people who tend to drive past other dispensaries to get to Remedy.
That speaks volumes.
It does. It definitely does. We have a really interesting experience. All of our patient advisors are ASA certified. It's called Americans for Safe Access.
Okay.
It's basically patient advisor training, for lack of a better word.
Okay.
And one of the things about cannabis is because it's not federally legal, there's no real standardization in the treatment,
Oh, okay.
right? And there's no real FDA approved, tests and so on and so forth. And so therefore, we can't really say that this works this way. What we can say is that we find that this tends to work this way for certain patients.
I see.
Right? So the ASA training, what it really does is kind of instills a real knowledge base in our patient advisors.
Okay.
And then our patient advisors they're all patients themselves. They're all very passionate about cannabis. So one of the things that we've kind of established is this really comfortable community where our patient advisors are able to really make people comfortable and kind of take them along the path in their journey. Because it really is what cannabis tends to be is people who have not found what it is they're looking for in standard medicine. So it really does become a journey. It's not people, look, there's people that are in there getting high, right? But even, like I said earlier, when you're getting high, you're probably self-medicating for something. And for every one person like that, there's 3 or 4 people who are like, I don't want opioids anymore. I don't want to do whatever it is that I'm doing anymore.
So walk me through the process. I don't have a medical card, right? But I'm driving in Colombia and I see your store and I pull in your parking lot and I'm like, yes! And I walk in the door. What happens?
So you're walking through Colombia, you see our store. Unfortunately, they do not have same-day patient. The process takes about a week or 2.
Okay.
How it would work is we have a process. We have patient concierges. We would sign you up in the state system on the computer, which you can also do yourself. Pretty easy. Take a picture of you. One of the things that we found with the state is that the picture tends to get rejected. So there's a specific way to take the picture. We send it into the state. And anywhere from 10 days to 3 or 4 weeks, they come back to you with a patient number. At that point, you go to a doctor, a certifying doctor. I believe there's 300 or 400 across the state of Maryland already.
Okay.
They write you a recommendation for cannabis. In Maryland, there are 13 qualifying illnesses.
Okay.
But Maryland also, one of the reasons its program is so liberal is that anyone can qualify for medical cannabis for anything that a doctor feels it would be beneficial for.
That's a really big umbrella.
Right, it really is. And what we actually find a lot is anxiety.
Yeah.
And anxiety is not one of the qualifying illnesses, but people do tend to use cannabis for it, to treat it, and it does tend to work. So, you know, one of the illnesses we see a lot of is anxiety and depression.
Okay, so I come in, you make me wait a week or 10 days to get my patient number. I go see a doctor. They give me like a referral slip, or?
They actually write you a recommendation.
Okay.
It's almost like like a prescription, but it's not. They're not allowed to write a prescription because it's federally illegal.
Okay.
And you bring that back to Remedy, and you're ready to be a patient. You're ready to
Now,
purchase
when I
cannabis.
do that, do I have to go through that process? Like, do I have to go back and see my doctor every month or every whatever, just one time?
Once every year. Once a year.
Oh, that's not bad.
Not at all. Not at all.
Okay.
And
So-
go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I get this. You inform me that I'm good to go, and I come back in. Tell me what I can find at Remedy. Is it snacks? Is it just barrels of weed? Is it vape pens?
All that.
Okay. Oh.
So we have in the state of Maryland, they have all products. They have cannabis flower. They have vape pens. They have concentrates. We do not have edibles in the state of Maryland.
Okay.
So they are in the process of figuring out the rules around edibles. There were some FDA concerns and food concerns and so on and so forth. We do have some orally ingested products.
What's that considered? Like a lollipop or a lozenge? Or something?
Exactly.
Okay.
Instead of gummies, we have troches. Instead of sodas, we have elixirs. At the end of the day, they're orally ingested, and the effect is the exact same as an edible.
Gotcha. Okay.
Our orally ingested products tend to be on the less strong side.
Really?
Yes, because the one risk in all medical cannabis is about edibles. The dosing in edibles is much harder to deal with and
regulate.
And the most adverse effects tend to be from edibles. And there's a scientific reason why, and I could go into it, but to make a long story short, it just tends to make people, if they're going to have an adverse reaction, it comes from edibles.
Well, I think that in generally with edibles, like people tend to overindulge, meaning like it comes in the form of a cookie. Ordinarily, I would eat a whole cookie.
Of course I would.
You know what I mean?
Maybe
like
two.
a whole brownie. You know what I mean? But with edibles, it's like you just need a little, like just a little slag.
And it takes
you know
like
what I mean?
30, 40 minutes, or it might take an hour. For some people, it might take 2 hours.
Right. And
So
then
then
you
he
go
says,
back
let me have some more cookie.
Yeah.
Yes,
or
it
you
is.
just eat the whole thing and then you have the worst experience of your life.
This
and you
is
never want to do it
exactly
again.
that, and that's. I personally am not a big edible fan, and I just don't like the way it makes me feel. But also, I've had that experience myself a couple times. Versus, if I were to smoke too much, which I don't really think I can, but if I were, the worst that happens is you fall asleep.
Right.
You know what I mean? But exactly right. But like you said, with an edible, there is the opportunity for a slightly adverse reaction. That being said, you're not dying.
Right.
You're not blacking out and waking up in a place that you don't know where you are. So I think what the processors have tended to do with these orally ingested medicines is to err on the side of caution, which I, as the provider, appreciate, and make smaller dosed orally ingested medicine.
That makes sense. So how can people get information about Remedy Columbia?
So we actually have I was going to really finish real quick on the doctor's appointment. So the doctor's appointment tends to cost between $150 and $225 in the state.
Okay.
And one of the barriers to entry that we found for patients is that that's a large amount of money for a cannabis user. That's half of an ounce, right? So one of the programs that we created was a reimbursement program.
Which is what?
Basically, if you bring your doctor's referral to Remedy with a receipt, we will give you back in product the cost of your doctor's appointment up to $200 over 5 visits. So what that equals is a $40 credit in product each time you visit up to 5 visits, which in our store, $40 gets you, an eighth of cannabis, of high grade cannabis. So
now, is there a limit? Like I have all my paperwork, I'm ready, I'm in your system. Can I just come in and buy out your store, or is it regulated?
Every patient in the state of Maryland has a 4 ounce per month limit.
Okay.
It's a lot.
That's a lot.
As a person who medicates every
Connoisseur?
day, yes. I don't use my 4 ounces. It's a lot.
That is a lot.
It's a lot. The people that do tend to use it are people that are making edibles at homes, because what some people tend to do is they'll buy 4 ounces and break it down and make their own brownies.
Okay.
Right. So that's the only people that I've really come across because it's a lot to smoke
That's
an ounce a
lot.
week.
That's
not
a
a little.
lot. I'm not mad at that though.
No, I mean, listen, if you can do it, more power to you.
Right.
The average person in the top 10% of usage, right, smokes 1.6 grams per day.
Oh, okay.
Which really, it works out to be what, 45, 50 grams a month, right? And our limit is 120. So it's a very fair.
Yikes.
Yeah, it's fair.
Okay.
It's more than fair. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And some people, your tolerance goes up as you medicate more and
Now,
more.
how do you measure, like, if it's a vape pen versus, like, I want a little bud, I want a little vape pen, and I want a little whatever.
So you can either have 120 grams of flower or 30 grams of THC. And what they measure is the percentage of THC in the gram that you bought of concentrate. So the concentrates are very intense. They'll be up to 90% THC.
Okay.
Right? So that would mean that you could have basically a gram of concentrate is 0.9% THC. So 90% THC. So they count either the THC or the flower.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a very fair program. You know what I mean? I never find myself lacking in medicine. And, they're trying to make it so that people can medicate in a safe fashion and at the same time control diversion and, make it so that people outside of the program do not have access to the medicine, which is,
makes sense.
that's a totally reasonable concern.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So if I go to a doctor and I get this card, but my job randomly drug tests me, that's got to be something you guys encounter, right?
It definitely is.
What happens? Like, the medical marijuana thing doesn't give me a pass if my job...
Exactly right. Not yet. So this is a conversation that's being had in some more some liberal states about is that recommendation or, referral, is that a protection? Is it right? The same way that, if a doctor referred you to opioids,
Right.
your employer wouldn't theoretically fire you for taking those opioids.
Right.
Now, there is no protections.
So you're on your own.
Yes, you're on your own.
Okay.
And that being said, there is, as corporate America becomes more comfortable with cannabis, which
A lot of places are.
they're a lot more, they don't like to tell you, but they really are
Yes,
much
they
more
are.
comfortable.
Yes.
Listen, a lot of these places they wouldn't be able to hire anybody.
Pretty much.
You know what I mean? And it's also, look, society is going through this whole kind
Transition.
of, exactly right, where we're like, maybe it's not as bad as everybody says it is, even it's happening in corporations, you know what I mean? Look, it really is a good medicine. Like, I used to work on Wall Street, and the stereotype on Wall Street is people do cocaine, right? But in reality, what I often found was that a lot of people on Wall Street used cannabis, and the reason was it was a relaxer, and the intensity, the intensity level of millions of dollars and trading and all these things, these people tend to just need to take it down a notch after the day was.
Fantastic. Well, I'll have to come visit Remedy Columbia once I get all my stuff
Have you?
in order. All right, so tell everyone how they can get more information.
Sure. So you can call us at Remedy Columbia, 410-935-7729. You can visit us on the website at www.remedycolumbia.com, or you can come down to Columbia and check us out, 6656 Dobbin Road, Suite E. We're on social media, Remedy Columbia.
Really?
We've actually gotten kicked off Instagram 4 times. Yeah.
Get out of here.
Instagram is terrible to cannabis businesses.
Wow.
Terrible.
Okay.
Yeah, they're very, very tough. So you might not find us on Instagram. We're on Facebook. It's very hard to find us on Instagram, but we're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're on all those things. And again, come on down. Look us up on the internet. Give us a call. We really want to help people become patients, and we're here to help people. Get started on their journey and transition along the way. It's a pretty amazing journey.
I'm here for all of that. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
For being informative. And thank you guys for joining us for another edition of What's Poppin' the podcast, only on 93.9 WKYS.